So in my last video, I talked about some stocks, indexes, and ETFs. At one point, I mentioned that some stocks and funds actually pay you for just holding them. That's called a dividend. Today, that's what we're going all in on. So what dividends are, how to find them, how to calculate what you're actually making, and the trap that a lot of beginners fall into chasing the highest yield they can find. What is a dividend? So a dividend is basically a company's way of rewarding its investors. When a company is profitable, they have a choice. They can reinvest that money back into the business, or they can share a portion of those profits directly with their shareholders. When they choose to share it, that's called a dividend. You own the stock, you get paid, simple as that. Not every company pays dividends though. A lot of growth companies like Google reinvest everything back into the business because they're still expanding. Dividend paying companies tend to be older, more established businesses that are generating consistent profits and don't need to reinvest every dollar. Now, what is a dividend yield? The number everyone looks at first when evaluating dividend stock is the dividend yield, and it's pretty straightforward. It's just the percentage of the stock price that gets paid out to you annually. So if a stock is trading at $100 and it pays $3 a year in dividends, that's a 3% yield. That's it. But here's something important to understand. The dividend yield only tells you the dividend return. It does not account for what the stock price is doing itself. So if a stock has a 5% dividend yield, but the stock is dropping 10% a year, you're actually losing money overall. The yield doesn't quite tell the whole story, and that's something a lot of beginners miss. Your real return is the dividend yield plus or minus what the stock actually does while you're holding it. So once you find a dividend stock you want to invest in, how do you actually know when you're getting paid? There's two dates you need to know. The first is the expected dividend date. This is the cutoff. You have to own the stock before this date to receive the upcoming dividend payment. If you buy after the X dividend date, you're going to have to wait until the next cycle. The second is the payment date. That's just when the money actually hits your account. And honestly, finding this information couldn't be easier. Just Google the stock ticker followed by the dividend date, and it's right there. Yahoo Finance is great for this too, and it shows you the full dividend history, the yield, the payment schedule, everything. It's all just a Google search away. An example of a reliable dividend payer is Coca-Cola, or the ticker symbol KO. Right now, KO is trading at $78.59 a share with a dividend yield of 2.63%. They pay quarterly, so 4 times a year, in April, July, October, and December. And here's what makes Coca-Cola special. They have raised their dividend every single year for 62 consecutive years. 62 years. That's not a company that's going to randomly cut your dividend. That's kind of consistency, is why they're called the Dividend King. So let's do some quick math. You own 100 shares of KO at $78.59. So that's about $7,859 invested. With a 2.63% yield, you're roughly hitting $206 a year in dividend income. That's about $51 every quarter when that payment hits. Now, that might not sound life-changing, but that's where it just gets interesting. Because with dividends, there's something called drip investing, or dividend reinvestment. So what if instead of taking that $51 and spending it, you automatically reinvest it into more shares of Coca-Cola? That's called DRIP, the dividend reinvestment plan. And this is where dividends connect directly back to compounding. Every payment buys you more shares. More share means a bigger payment next time. That bigger payment buys even more shares, and it just keeps snowballing. You're not adding any new money. The dividend is doing the work for you. Over a long time horizon, this gets seriously powerful, and most brokerages let you set up DRIP automatically so you don't even have to think about it. If you want to see these numbers for yourself, there's plenty of dividend calculators on the internet, and every single time I find a dividend stock I'm just a little bit interested in, you throw it in there and you see little returns over however long your time horizon is. Okay, so now let's talk about the other side of this, because not all dividend yields are created equal, and this is where a lot of players get burned. You're scrolling through stocks and you see something with a 90% dividend yield or 50 or even just 20, and your brain automatically goes, why wouldn't everyone just buy this? If I put 10,000 in here, I'm making 2,000 a year in just dividends alone. Well, here's why that's dangerous. A high yield is almost always a red flag, and the reason is simple. If the stock is paying out an insane dividend, but the stock price is constantly dropping, those dividend payments aren't actually covering your losses. You're bleeding out on the price while collecting what feels like free money. A perfect example of this is a fund called ULTY. At one point, this thing was advertising an absolutely insane dividend yield. We're talking numbers that seemed too good to be true, and they were, because while you were collecting those payments, the price of the fund itself just keeps getting destroyed. People who chased that yield ended up with unrealized losses that wiped out everything they made in dividends and then some. I'm one of those people. I was early in my investing life, And I did try this one. I found it online and everything, and then did the math myself, and it sounded too good to be true, and it certainly was. So the lesson is a high yield means nothing if the underlying asset is just falling apart. Always look at the full picture. What is the price doing over time? Is this company actually sustainable? A 2.63 yield from Coca-Cola has been growing for 62 years. Is worth infinitely more than a 90% yield from something that's going to slowly return to zero. So let's talk about the monthly dividend income, the YouTube thing. Real quick, I want to address something you've probably seen all over YouTube. People love to talk about their monthly dividend income like, oh, I made 500 this month in dividends, and it sounds amazing. But here's the reality. Most dividend stocks don't pay monthly. Coca-Cola pays 4 times a year, so pay once a year. So when someone says they made 500 in dividends this month, what they usually mean is that they made 6,000 annually and divided it by 12 to get a monthly average. That's not the same thing as just simply receiving 500 a month. And it's not a lie, but it's just misleading because not all stocks are the same. And sometimes you are going to be able to make yourself a dividend portfolio that will pay you monthly. And you're just going to have to own different symbols, different ETFs, different stocks, different companies to make that happen. My personal stance on dividends, well, I do have some stocks in my individual portfolio and some that I'm looking to grow over time. Where I focus on building dividend income is in my Roth IRA. And I'll explain what that is in a later video because it deserves its own breakdown. But let's just give you a little preview. My biggest holding in mine right now is SCHD, which is Schwab's high dividend ETF. So I have 35% of that. Then I have 30% of VOO and 5% in individual stocks. And then I do have a SCHG, which is Schwab's growth ETF. Those are just the ones that I invest in. And it's really because I don't have a lot of my Roth. I am pretty young. So I'm just trying to grow that over time and really just leave something in there to just leave. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to play with it. I don't want to try to make millions in my Roth so I don't blow it and not have it. It's really just that simple. All of this is not financial advice because I'm not a financial advisor. This is just my journey. This is me just trying to share some of the things I've learned. So thank you guys.